guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about arguably the most important non-chaos faction in Warhammer, and that is the Empire. They are the heirs of Sigmar. The year is 2522, and it is the reign of Emperor Karl Franz. More than 2 centuries have passed since Magnus the Pious reunited a divided realm, a time in which the Empire has rebuilt and grown powerful. However, evil still lurks in the depths of the land. Mutant monsters prowl its dark forests, malevolent rat men plot beneath its cities, and the living dead rise from its graveyards. Old enemies look enviously across its borders, and the threat of invasion from greenskins and chaos-worshipping barbarians is an ever-present danger. Indeed, the Empire faces dire circumstances, and to survive, it is constantly at war. And it has ever been thus. The Empire's very birth was forged in battle. The legendary warriors Sigmar united the primitive tribes of men in order to drive off hordes of orcs and goblins. Since those ancient times, the Empire has grown into the prominence with which it dominates the old world. These are the chronicles of the Empire's rise to power. The Empire. The Empire lies at the heart of the old world, and it is the most powerful of all the realms of men. But it is a realm of constant turmoil, beset on all sides by the ferocious and the unholy. Truly, the Empire is a land of ever-present danger, where death and war are never far away. Yet, despite the bloodshed, this great nation endures still, its cosmopolitan cities and military strongholds forming bulwarks against the sea of savagery. The Empire stretches from the icy Sea of Claws in the north to the soaring Black Mountains in the south. It is a land covered by dense forests and surrounded by mountain ranges, all infested by murderous brigands, foul mutants, and ravenous monsters. Isolated against this treacherous backdrop are prosperous cities, where skilled craftsmen and affluent merchants trade their wares, and where brave soldiers and noble statesmen work to safeguard the Empire's future. Beneath this veneer of sophistication, however, the Empire is a brooding land full of ignorance and superstition, where fearful peasants clutch talismans to ward off evil sorceries and appease the gods of old. In stark contrast to the wealthy districts are slums, rife with thieves, vagabonds, and heretical cults that prey on their fellow man. All aspects of human endeavor can be found within the Empire, and for every noble hero that walks the streets, there is a murderous cutthroat lurking not far away. The rulers of men. The Empire was founded many long ages ago by the warrior god Sigmar, and since then it has seen its people through a great deal of upheaval. Though the Empire has not always been united according to Sigmar's vision, it has even suffered long periods of internal strife. It has always stood strong against those forces that would threaten its survival. The elector counts as the rulers of the provinces forge their alliances, maintain their militaries, and run their governments as suits their own region and its needs. However, their strength together has always been the source of their greatest victories, especially when united behind a capable emperor. The armies of state. A mass of brightly uniformed soldiers forms the bulk of every Empire army. Disciplined ranks of spearmen and grim halberdiers march into battle alongside companies of flamboyant swordsmen, their advance is covered by the fire of vast blocks of archers, handgunners, and crossbowmen. Countless thousands of these loyal soldiers stand ready to defend their realm. Beside these brave men march disillusioned bands of flagellants. Why are they disillusioned? Fiery warrior priests and grim witch hunters tasked with dealing out righteous retribution to the manifold evils of the world. The Emperor's armies can also call upon the expertise of the Imperial Gunnery School, whose mighty cannons and mortars blast the foe from afar, and the experimental creations of the Imperial Engineers School, inventors of some of the most unpredictable and occasionally deadly tools of war in an Empire army. However, the most mysterious of Imperial institutions are the colleges of magic, responsible for training the Empire's battle wizards. Though wizards are mistrusted by the superstitious folk of the Empire, their eldritch powers and arcane weapons make them an essential tool on the field of war. Finally, the armies of the Empire are bolstered by the heavy cavalry of the knightly orders, noble-born warriors clad in the finest polished steel. When war calls, the grand masters of the knightly orders lead their men forth, galloping towards the foe in sweeping charges as they drive their lances deep into the heart of the enemy battle line. An empire under siege. Over the centuries, the empire has suffered brutal invasions, rampant plagues, bloody civil wars, and the predations of foul monsters too numerous to mention. Now, during the reign of Emperor Karl Franz, the empire has never faced greater threats. All of its ancient foes have regrouped and are preparing their next barrage of devastating attacks. Orcs gather in the mountains, Skaven lurk beneath the great cities, while foul chaos cults hide within their walls. Whatever foul and insidious form it takes, and from whichever direction the first strike comes, the doom of the realm seemingly draws near. In such war-torn times, the armies of the Emperor must hold the line against these unrelenting dangers. They must not waver and cannot fail, for if the Empire falls, the civilized world will be drowned in a tide of blood and death. The history of the Empire. Most of what is known from the earliest days of the Empire comes from dwarf records. The long wars between the dwarves and elves had ended. The dwarves retreated to their mountain holds in the World's Edge Mountains, and the High Elves abandoned their colonies, crossing the sea back to Ulthuan. Though the dwarves remained, their influence was much weakened, for many of their most powerful kings were dead and their holds overrun. These ancient times had been a period of great disorder, and exact historical detail is scarce, but it is known that when the mountains of the east erupted in flames and were riven by almighty earthquakes, the power of the dwarves was finally broken, and a new power was to rise in strength and ambition: orcs and goblins. Hordes of greenskins poured over the World's Edge Mountains through passes previously guarded by dwarf fortresses to ravage the lands west of the mountains. As the dwarf realms reeled from the never-ending attacks, many of the tribes of man began migrating southwards. Unberogans, Teutogans, Thuringians, Cherusans, Norsei, and Morogans, to name but a few. These primitive tribes were a far cry from the civilized men of the Empire today. Uncouth barbarians clad in rough furs, they dwelt in mud huts and carried crude weapons of stone or bronze. However, the dwarf records tell that these men were courageous and hardy, recounting how they battled against the brutal orcs and goblins for possession of the dark forests. Somewhere, somehow, the dwarves and the humans forged an alliance that was to prove mutually beneficial over the next several hundred years. Many dwarves fled westward, away from the ruins of the World's Edge Mountains, and some found holds in the Grey Mountains to the south. Perhaps it was the dwarf merchants trading for fur, charcoal, and mineral ore who were the first to deal with the tribes of men on a regular basis. In any case, it is certain that when they fought in common cause against the greenskin hordes, both dwarf and men recognized potential in each other. The dwarves saw new allies who could help them win back their lost mountain empire, and men were eager to learn the secrets of metalworking and the means of forging strong weapons of iron. The human tribes had never marched beneath one banner, but the dwarves were able to broker alliances and truces that brought thousands of fierce, well-armed warriors eastward. The mightiest of these men was known as Sigmar, the first son of the Unberogan chieftain, whose auspicious birth had been heralded by a twin-tailed comet blazing across the sky. Sigmar was a respected warrior of great nobility, courage, and strength, and legend says that by his 15th year he had already led the terrifying Unberogans into battle against the orc hordes dozens of times. The rise of Sigmar. As the decades of bloodshed and warfare dragged on, the orcs and goblins grew more cunning, and in one daring attack, captured Kurgan Ironbeard, High King of the Dwarves, as he made his way to the Grey Mountains, as well as several members of his royal household. As fate would have it, Sigmar and his most trusted warriors were already hunting this band of orcs, and caught them in the deep forest before they could escape. Sigmar slew many orcs that day, burning their foul corpses on a huge pyre after freeing the dwarf captives. In gratitude for his release, King Kurgan presented Sigmar with a magical heirloom of his family, a magnificent rune-forged warhammer named Gal Maraz, which means skull splitter in the ancient dwarf tongue. Sigmar accepted the king's generous gift, and the two warriors pledged to aid one another in the wars against the rampaging greenskins. And so the bond between men and dwarves became ever stronger, even as the threat from the east grew. Sigmar wielded Gal Maraz in battle after bloody battle like a thunderbolt of destruction, wading into living seas of greenskins and smiting about him with prodigious fury, earning the nickname Heldenhammer, the Hammer of Goblins, although actually what that means is Hero Hammer, which maybe they were predicting 4th edition, 5th edition, 5th edition. Upon the death of his father, Sigmar became the chieftain of the Unberogans and set about uniting the human tribes of the West through a combination of conquest and cooperation. Sigmar was a powerful and charismatic leader, but above all he had a vision, a land united under his rule, free of orcs and goblins, governed by fair laws, and protected by a strong, disciplined army. After years of bloody war and diplomacy, 12 of the great tribes of men had sworn mighty oaths to follow Sigmar, and, together with his dwarf allies, he drove the greenskin scourge from the lands west of the World's Edge Mountains. The few human tribes who still opposed Sigmar, mostly ancient enemies of the Unberogan, were driven south into the inhospitable Grey Mountains, or, like the Norsey, north beyond the Middle Mountains, leaving Sigmar the undisputed ruler of the lands between the World's Edge Mountains and the Great Ocean. Thus, when the dwarves were once again threatened by hordes of orcs and goblins, King Kurgan dispatched the runesmith, Alaric the Mad, to seek aid from Sigmar and the race of men. The Old Alliance. In the history of the world, there has never been a greater alliance than that struck between the ancient tribes of men and the dwarves. When one considers the skeptical nature of the dwarves, it is a miracle that any common ground could be found at all. But in Sigmar they found an ally worthy of their respect and trust. Over and again, Sigmar proved that dwarven faith was not misplaced, raising the siege of Zuvbar, fighting beside Bori Gnarlhelm in the Blood Axe Deeps, holding Blackfire Pass, and many more. Dwarves have long memories, and they have not forgotten Sigmar's deeds, nor the pledge of friendship they made with the barbarian king. Thus, while the dwarves must occasionally put the men of the Empire in their place, they will always march in defense of the Old Alliance, for in a world infested by savage enemies, true friends are hard to find. Blackfire Pass. As soon as he heard of the danger to the dwarves, Sigmar called a gathering of his chieftains and ordered them to muster their warriors. This army joined with that of King Kurgan, and together they marched to face the vast horde of greenskins that was pushing through Blackfire Pass. The only route by which an army could hope to cross the Black Mountains, many battles have since been fought. This is awkwardly written. the only route by which an army could hope to cross the Black Mountains. Many battles have since been fought at this crossing point, but this epic struggle eclipses all others. The vastly outnumbered armies of men and dwarves stood side by side against the greenskins as they poured up the valley. Though the horde's ranks were bolstered by foul trolls and lumbering giants, Sigmar and King Kurgan had chosen the field of battle with great cunning. Their armies were drawn up where the pass was at its narrowest, where the overwhelming numbers of orcs and goblins could be faced on equal footing. The battle lasted for many brutal hours, with the howling green tide breaking time and time again against the unbending line of splintered shields and bloodied blades. Sigmar himself fought with the strength and fury of the warrior god Ulrich, and no foe could stand against him. Orcs and goblins were slain by the score, and even terrifying wyverns fell to the Heldenhammer's wrath. As well as Sigmar, great heroes such as Ulfdar the Berserker, Marbad of the Endals, and Queen Freya of the Asaborns made their names that grim day, their deeds becoming the stuff of legends for generations to come. Following a furious counterattack by the elite veterans of the Unberogan tribe, the orc battle line fell back in disarray for the final time. Sigmar personally led a fearsome charge deep into the enemy ranks. With howls of victory, he and his fellow chieftains cut a swath through the fleeing greenskins and slaughtered them without mercy. The greenskins had been driven from the field in rout, and the threat to the dwarfs' realm was ended for many years to come. The founding of the Empire. In recognition of this incredible victory, the High Priest of Ulrich pronounced Sigmar Emperor of all the lands between the Grey Mountains in the south and the Middle Mountains in the north, and King Kurgan presented Sigmar with a magnificent dwarf-forged crown. The Emperor and the Dwarf High King swore oaths of eternal friendship to one another, and in gratitude for their aid in saving the dwarf realms, Kurgan commanded Alaric the Mad to begin the long process of creating 12 magical swords, known as Rune Fangs, for each of the tribal chieftains. Sigmar's coronation marks the beginning of the imperial calendar and the first day of the Empire. He ruled justly and courageously from his capital, Reichdorf, later to be renamed Altdorf, granting land to the 12 tribal chieftains who had sworn allegiance to him and aided him in his many wars against the Greenskins. These divisions were based upon the old tribal territories, but they also absorbed the lands and peoples of many smaller tribes, as well as those that had previously belonged to the enemies of the Unberogans. The chieftains of these 12 provinces each took the title of Count, and they were bound to Sigmar by oaths of loyalty. In return, they and their heirs were to rule in his name. Sigmar ruled the empire for another 50 years, and, during his time, rough villages blossomed into small towns. The people multiplied, and many new settlements were founded. Of course, there were still enemies to fight. Marauding goblins continued to cross over the World's Edge Mountains, and there were plenty of savage human tribes that raided the fledgling empire from the northern forests beyond the Middle Mountains. Little else is known of Sigmar's reign, for the dwarf annals thereafter are concerned chiefly with their own affairs. All that is known for certain is that Sigmar eventually put aside his crown and journeyed eastwards, supposedly to Karazakarak to meet his old friend Kurgan Ironbeard. If he ever arrived, the records do not tell, but he was never seen by his people again. The time of Sigmar passed, and he became a legend, the heroic forebearer of his people. Temples and shrines were built to his memory, and a cult grew up to venerate him as the empire's founder. Within a generation, Sigmar was openly worshipped as a god, with his own priesthood headed by a grand theogenist, Johann Hellsturm, who became a powerful religious leader. The cult of Sigmar became one of the most powerful faiths in the land, with many thousands of loyal followers, and the hero of Blackfire Pass took his place alongside the pantheon of the old gods of the Empire. I think that is a pretty appropriate place to stop, because we're going to start getting into the less fun for the Empire, the less fun stuff now, the Age of Anarchy. So I think ending on a positive note there is good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.